the known law of nature. I do wonder sometimes if Dr. Nash equilibrium is still valid today. Technology has changed the paradigm of business. Its pace of acceleration has baffled most of the business processes. It, of course, has changed the learning and training environment. HR function is not untouched. From the sources of hiring, selection processes, induction programs, performance assessments, retention, every process has seen a new way of conducting the same old standard process that we used to conduct in the past. I myself have been a naysayer of online teaching due to the loneliness of learners, of teachers. But today I conduct my entire functioning on Google Classroom, from yoga to remedial classes to quiz to debates, everything is in the online format. And today I recommend LinkedIn Learning programs to my student. Some of these changes, perhaps many of these changes, are going to be here to stay. Let's discuss, deliberate with the HR experts present with us about the new norm. I would like to thank the experts, the National Human Resource Development Network, for collaborating for this conclave. We are supported by students of PGP program. Almost all of them have spent 2 years in the lockdown, and today are part of the cohort which is in campus today, but huddled in a bubble, following all those rules, protocols. I do get scared by the systems that we have created for them, but somehow that's the only way to keep ourselves safe. We would have loved to give you a sneak peek into the campus, which we had originally planned. Students were excited about showing you the wonderful campus we have in Gurugram. But unfortunately, Code Red and sort of Section 144, we have not allowed assembly of more than 4 students anywhere or 4 employees anywhere in the campus. So we decided against it only about 2-3 days back. And perhaps some other day we would like to give you a sneak peek into our wonderful campus. Now I would request Aditya Saraswat, student of this cohort, and his team to invoke the blessing of Ma Saraswati for all of us in this session. Thank you. Aditya ji, please.
With the blessings of Lord Saraswati, let's move forward. Discussions are always better than argument, because an argument is to find out who is right, and a discussion is to find out what is right. Good morning to one and all present here. On behalf of JK Business School, I, Aditya Saraswat, student of PGDM first year, would like to extend a very warm welcome to our esteemed panelists, notable members of NHRD, Delhi NCR, august audience, respected faculty, staff, and my fellow students. Before we start the HR Conclave 4.0, a red letter day in the academic journey of JK Business School, I would like to take the opportunity to share some context and flavors of JK Business School and the enthusiasm that our cohort has for this event. Well, JK Business School is Asia's top industry-anchored B school as ranked by ASSOCHAM and is a member of JK organization, one of India's leading private sector group, with a storied record of contributing to Indian business through various education institutes and initiatives. JK Business School was set up in 2006 amid the emergence and proliferation of IT and modern business model. The USP of JK Business School, which gives it an edge over other private B school in India, is it offers a unique learning experience to its students through JKBS Triad, which includes tech-savvy curriculum, strong industry connect, and beyond academic activity. Students are offered experiential learning by veterans from industry through Leadership Talk Series, Learning certifications, IMBX certification, capstone projects, management simulation game, to name just a few. Well, ladies and gentlemen, in the dynamic work environment, organizations need to constantly evolve, innovate, and modify the system for effectively scanning the environment, devise action plan to grow and sustain the businesses. This is even more prevalent when the evolving time has seen the cataclysmic changes in the work, ethics, attitude, and job profiles. Things have not been same since COVID, and the process of metamorphosis for achieving stability and efficiency will be an ongoing process. The change is the only permanent phenomenon in this changing world. To achieve this, our institute worked extensively to impart experiential learning through blended mode, to help potential business leaders like me to make them capable of responding and adapting to these new global market challenges. We are here today for yet another session of prognostic, adding another golden page in the workbook of JK Business School with the topic, The Future Workforce Reset 2021 and beyond. My fellow student and I
Aditya, are you there?
I think probably he has some connectivity challenges. If Sonia you can continue from here.
Sure. I apologize for that, but these are one of the things that we have to bear with being online. Aditya is one of our first year students and he's actually on campus today. So hopefully we'll get him back at some point. Let me continue. Good morning to all our guests participating today, esteemed panelists, notable members of the NHRD, Delhi and NCR chapter, and my colleagues in the JKBS school fraternity. A very warm welcome to the JK Business School HR Conclave 4.0. Today, I will be your host for the event. Some time back, I was discussing with our director the prospect of continuing our annual conclave in the second half of this year, and we went back and forth with that idea. We thought, should we delay the program to the second half of the year? But like most of our learnings during the last year, we decided to take it online. As fate would have it, India is seeing a resurgence in the last year with the spike of number of COVID-19 cases. The presence of COVID-19 is still very much in our lives. And this truly makes one realize that things are changing minute to minute, week to week. And whatever is happening globally has a residual effect on every single person sitting here today. HR heads in the way they hire, who they hire, and how many they hire. It affects every student here, whether it's his or her choice of career path, the courses he decides to upskill with. And lastly, it affects the educators present here, in the way we execute our academic programs, our admission cycles, but most importantly, the mental well-being of our students. At JKBS, I'm proud to say that we've switched to a fully online teaching model. And at present, we are fortunate to be able to start, and we did start with some physical classes. We have re-looked and introspected at the whole teaching model and realized that this blended way of learning may be the path for the future. Our newly designed soft skills training program, which we affectionately call POB, the Program Outcome Assessment Board, incorporates LinkedIn learning, in which portions of the training are actually done online and on the platform. It's been received extremely successfully by our students. And we have the COVID-19 pandemic to thank for this. So my point is that this pandemic has taught us a lot to accept and welcome these hybrid models, whether they're in the classroom or whether they're in the workforce of 2021. We will never really, and this is my opinion, go back to the way things were. And do we really want to? I've purposely not touched upon the themes of the conclave because I know they will be discussed in depth today by our panelists, and I'm very excited to hear what they have to say the future reset holds for us sitting here. I'm going to leave you with one of my favorite quotes by Charles Darwin, and it's one that I tell my students all the time, and it's very apt for today's time. It is not the strongest of species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but it is the most responsive to change. And we all need to remain agile in the face of change. Stay humble, authentic to what we decide to be our purpose. So without further delay, I would like to warmly welcome our keynote speaker for today, Mr. Rajiv Kapoor, who has kindly joined us in association with the NHRD. Now, Mr. Kapoor has a rich experience of 33 years in Indian and multinational companies like Goodyear India, JCB India Limited, and Fortis Healthcare Limited, where he was the Chief People Officer. Mr. Kapoor currently heads the Human Resources function at Uno Minda as capacity of Executive Director, Group HRM, looking after all areas of human resources, as well as leading the group initiatives on corporate social responsibility. Uno Minda is one of India's largest automotive component manufacturers with an employee strength of over 23,000, a global manufacturing footprint of 62 manufacturing plants, out of which 7 are overseas. Mr. Kapoor, in his 3+ decades of human resources experience, has partnered with leading industry forums such as as a human resources thought leader, and he's shared his insights and perspectives on strategic human resources and future-focused leadership development. Mr. Kapoor is a golf enthusiast. He enjoys listening to music, photography, and is an avid biker. Mr. Kapoor, sir, I will kindly hand the platform over to you.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you for that introduction. And good morning, everyone. It's really an honor to be here amongst all of you today. And it's good to see some of my panelists from earlier programs also joining in. And I thank the JK Business School and the NHRDN for this opportunity provided to me. Thank you so much. Like Dr. Marwaha was saying, the times have been very tough and the times have been extremely scary. We have realized that we used to talk about VUCA. Now it looks like a dinky toy in comparison to this Godzilla, which has the speed and ferocity of a T-Rex. That's what we are dealing with. But we as a human race, we fought, we persevered, we almost got away with it. But no, this T-Rex refuses to be extinct. It's back. The humankind has survived, and it is this fighting spirit which is still keeping us hanging there. Now, very importantly, we've learned several lessons during these crisis times, or the pandemic times as we call them. Very few ones I would like to share with you, the key ones. We are not the strongest. We do not know enough. Technology is a great friend and is a savior. What was important to us, the reference point for that has changed. We can adapt. Or if you talk about the medical terminology, we too can mutate very quickly. So these are some of the key learnings which I think this crisis has brought forward. So coming to the theme of today, the future workforce reset. All you young students are the future we are talking about. You are going to be the leaders in the future. So what is going to be different? Trust me, a lot is going to be different. The pandemic is all around, across the globe, everywhere. Every person, every organization is still grappling with this pandemic. Every country, every organization reacted differently. India Inc. too was caught in this battle for survival. While all the organizations put on their responses to survive, some were better than the rest. First, let's understand as to what kind of organizations were the quickest and the most successful to tackle the challenges posed by the pandemic. And there are some lessons to be learned from here. Organizations with empowering and enabling cultures, they were better. Organizations with a war chest of capable talent. Organizations with leadership teams which got excited and inspired by the crisis. Organizations which focused on employee well-being and mental health of their employees rather than just on profits and business. Organizations which had targeted teams to handle the crisis while rest of the team focused on business. They moved fast, but moved together. Organizations which are able to have genuine and authentic communication. The focus is genuine and authentic communication with their employees. Organizations which spawned newer styles of leadership, delegated leadership, shared leadership. And I'm sure the panelists are going to develop on these new styles of leadership which have come up now. Organizations in which authority morphed into distributed authority with a central coordination. Organizations which witnessed a tectonic shift in their transactional tonality from a parent to child transaction, now it's adult to adult transaction, thus multiplying the engaged stakeholders in an organization. Organizations which were resilient. As within a span of 6 months, the organizations had to shift from a scenario where the future was totally unknown and dark to a scenario when it became difficult and challenging to onboard enough employees to meet the surge in the market demands. So while 2020 was a horrific year, many businesses have also logged in the best ever results. So that is the diverse reaction we've had in this last year. So once we analyze these enablers, we would be able to fathom as to what kind of talent is going to be needed in the future years. First, I would like to assure the young leaders amongst us that there is no need to be overtly worried. Yes, there is a health crisis, but human race has come out of many such crises earlier too. We adapt and we survive. Sonia quoted Charles Darwin. That's very, very apt at this time. So be full of hope, and that is what is going to drive all of us. Now, since we are on the topic of the future, workforce reset, I would like to mention here that as per me, some of the capabilities which I would urge the young leaders to inculcate, imbibe, and hone, that's what I'm going to be sharing with you. These are not exclusive to the many other traits and capabilities which you must have, but these stood out during the recent crisis. The first one I would like to talk about is learning agility. I think this is, we all have realized that this is now coming up to the top, and many big consulting organizations are also now recalibrating this to be amongst the top of the capabilities required now. Second, of course, is adaptability. Third is decisiveness. I think taking decisions on your toes, I think that's what has been the ask, which was from the crisis time. Innovation and creativity. Design thinking. This, I think, became extremely important when organizations were designing solutions for their employees, for their stakeholders. So design thinking has come up again on the top. Mindfulness. This was a time to be mindful about everything around us. We reflected, we learned, we adapted, we reset ourselves. So mindfulness is extremely important as a trait and a capability which we should look at. Not to miss empathy and compassion. That is what was a central theme throughout the pandemic and still continues to be. Be it your employee policies, the way we treat our employees, the way we treat our stakeholders, society around us. It is all about empathy and compassion. Collaboration, of course, this was a time to collaborate. Trust came up very, very strongly. I think organizations have now started trusting employees at all levels, empowered them, delegated their authority. They are now having all the authority to take the decisions on the spot. So I think that is something which has come up. Passion and drive. is very important capability which you must have. Of course, the tech savviness, needless to say, I think the young generation is already very tech savvy. Frugal mindset, how to do more with less. I think this is again a very strong message which has come out of these pandemic times. A frugality of operations, the frugality of your policies. How do you manage to get the best outcome by spending the least? Sensing, listening to the unsaid, seeing the invisible, and then expecting the unexpected. Now, these are very, very strong things to imbibe, but be ready to expect the unexpected. This has happened, this can happen again. So learn and be ready the next time. And lastly, sustainability mindset. We have seen the positive effects of the lockdown on the environment. We have seen blue skies come back once again in NCR. Those were very nice days we had. So this was a curtain raiser. Now we know it can be done. Now organizations would plan to continue such positive impact to improve the environmental sustainability. There's a reset happening in these thought process of how we operate, how we work in the organization. Do we really need offices? Many organizations have already announced people 1 year, 2 year, you can work from home. Some have even announced that you don't have to come ever to the office. So that's the kind of reset which has happened. For those out of you who are going to be HR managers, the challenges are going to be even more interesting. For example, during the pandemic, your employees were interviewed remotely, virtually. They joined virtually, got inducted virtually, have only met with your colleagues virtually. That's what we have come to. The very important induction and bonding methodologies like the chai tapri talk, lunchroom banter, water cooler gossip have all gone missing, thus not allowing a fresher to have the smell and feel of their new workplace, which is extremely important. How does such an employee get assimilated in the work culture of an organization, which he has never physically experienced? That's the challenge to the HR. How do young leaders learn to read the very basic of human observational learning technique, body language? How will the competitive spirit be impacted, which is a very important ingredient in order to strive forward and lead, because you are not in meetings together. That spirit is missing. So interesting times are ahead. These are new challenges. And I feel that the pandemic has presented the current generation with a vast new play field, and they have to now take on the game with newer capabilities and score their successes. The past has been reset. There is no going back now. The new normal we used to talk about is now normal. That's the transition it has seen. So while we were planning all these years, COVID just came in and pressed the reset button for us. So it's time to log in afresh, a fresh password, a fresh and brighter desktop, terabytes of available space to start writing our new success stories. So like I have always said, stay positive, but stay negative. When I say negative, it is the corona negative I'm saying. So stay positive, but try and stay negative, COVID-wise. There is hope. The future is very bright. And I can see all you young leaders after a few years talking to your children and telling them stories like, once upon a time, not so long ago, there was a virus called COVID-19. And this is how we beat it up. And you will be looking forward to see that glow of pride in those young eyes. So go ahead. The world is yours. With this, I would stop here. And I would like to say thank you to Alok, to Prem, to Sonia for allowing me to speak to all of you today. Have a great panel discussion and have a great day full of meaningful learning. Most importantly, stay safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kapoor, for your valuable insight. It is truly a privilege to be able to host you today on behalf of JKBS, and we look forward to, at some point, seeing you in person on our campus. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I would like to now formally start the speaker event and panel discussion by introducing our moderator, Mr. Vishal Segal, with whom JKBS has had a long-standing relationship over the years. Mr. Segal is highly educated from reputable institutions globally, including Harvard and MIT. He has participated and won innovation competitions at Harvard, Stanford, and MIT. He's a recipient of the prestigious Joint Japan World Scholarship at Harvard University. He was formerly the head of corporate relations for Metro Cash and Carry, India, which is a subsidiary of a large German multinational. He also has held senior management positions with ICICI Limited and ICICI Bank. Mr. Segal has spoken at various conferences in India and abroad, including IIM, IIT, and the ITU Telecom World Forum in Geneva. Sir, I'm going to hand over the platform to you now.
Thank you, Sonia ji, for this introduction, and thanks a lot for all the panelists who've given their time today. Just for all the attendees, and I see over 180 attendees on my screen, I just want to point out that there is over 175 years of collective experience that you are going to listen to at this point in time. And this is across a very broad range of industries, right from high-tech to Onida, which our director Sahab has represented in the past, to hotels, to consumer durables, to consulting, and to new age companies. And there is a very wide range of experience in terms of geography that is there on the panel today. So please take copious notes and ensure that your presence matters at this conclave today. I will start with just two caveats. First, please don't ask any questions that are company specific, because this is an open platform and we would not expect the panelists to talk about specific things that their companies are doing. They are, we will use their discretion in going forward. And the second is, any question that you ask needs to have three characteristics. First, it needs to have a point. B, it needs to be short. And most importantly, any question needs to end with a question mark, and that's absolutely critical. So I start with Yuvraj Shrivastava, and I would ask him to start. But I see him here. Yuvraj Shrivastava is the CHRO of Make My Trip. He's a graduate in industrial psychology from Allahabad University and an MBA in HR from IMT Ghaziabad. Before transitioning to the corporate world in 1997, he served with Indian Armed Forces for 6 years and participated in various counterinsurgency operations in J&K sector. He served with the Asian Paints, the Oberoi Group of Hotels, PepsiCo India, before joining Make My Trip in 2014. He has been recognized and conferred with many professional awards, including LinkedIn Power Profile India 2016 and 100 Most Influential HR Leaders in India 2017. Mr. Shrivastava, over to you, sir.
Thanks a lot, Segal, and I think it's an absolute pleasure to be here. I think for the last half an hour, I have been experiencing the overall order, overall, methodology, overall, composure, and also protocol, the way it's being followed. I think that a great experience so far, and I'm sure that it shows the overall mettle and the philosophy of the organization which is hosting this, and compliment to JKBS team for really doing this so methodically. I think overall communication with us over a period of last 1 week or so had also been so professional that it gave clearly a sense that, I think that we all are going to have a great experience. And thanks a lot for really living up to that. It'll not take much time. I think that many points were covered by Rajiv. Rajiv is a dear friend, and I think that he made some very, very important and subtle points. Prior to that, I think Dr. Marwa also spoke a bit. And I think if I have to really make my opening remarks, I'll say a few things. One is, while change is evident, but I have started believing that change also operates in the given context. And if every variable of the context doesn't change, change can happen for a while till the time you are experiencing the issue or the problem. But the moment things start getting normalized, you start going back to your normal ways of working. Because sustained change needs not only sustained experience, but also issues and the context should remain same. I also feel that uh, change is lot driven in the corporate world with the context in which you operate. If you operate in a technology world, I think that you can continue to work the way you have been working for last 1 year. If you are working in a sales organization wherein every day route is very, very important, I think that your life will change for a while, but later on it will come back to the way you have been operating. Your life and the organization also operates in the stage of its evolution, how they really change. Stable, large conglomerates can really afford to do things the way they have been doing and they will want to change. But at the same time, in a large competitive environment of startups, I think there's always a competition in the market and people would really like to go beyond the normal ways of working to really beat the competition or gain market share and do everything possible. And that's where the whole stage of the organization starts defining that how will you change and how much will you change. In the month of May, June, perhaps we continue to really hear that everything will go completely 100% change in terms of the ways of working, hybrid model. But November, December, I think the people started moderating their point of view in terms of the workplace models. And now when we are again going back in the second wave, uh, opinion is still mixed in terms of what workplaces will adopt to. If I have to look at few things which would become very different and should become very different for the success of the organizations, I would be like this. First is I think that Rajiv talked about is the trust between the managers and the teams will have to be redefined. Now it is no more something which people can only talk and keep it as a part of the first time managers program or the middle level managers development program. It will have to be experienced. It will have to be really measured that how much trust is really getting delivered between the managers and the employees. Otherwise, things will not really work. So it moves from the academics word to the real measurable word in terms of trust. And I think organization needs to prepare that way. Second point, what I feel is important is now DNI is now different. I think that we all have worked in the organization when diversity and inclusion continue to be towards the low-hanging fruit of increasing gender diversity or looking at especially able people. Now look at the dichotomy. On one side, you continue to have people who are diverse in terms of region, diverse in terms of gender, diverse in terms of experience. Now there's a new element which has come up, which defines diversity, which is some people are working from home, some people are in market, some people are at office. There's a new element to diversity, and handling this diversity along with the previously defined diversity will ensure that organizations are succeeding or not succeeding. Inclusion will become very different. Inclusion used to be inclusion of the thought process. Inclusion will now be really very, very differently looked at how people are operating in different environments and how managers and organizations are again making it very measurable. I think one important element again, which I feel would be important is families are now going to be integral part and organizations needs to start working towards integrating families towards the working. In fact, when we started career 25-30 years back, I think the structure of the families used to be very different. In last 10-15 years, the structure of the families have changed, wherein the couples are working, everybody is leading their independent life is very, very nucleus in terms of a bigger city. People are not involved in what is happening in spouse's life in terms of a work. Is somebody getting promoted or not getting promoted? Is somebody leaving a job or retaining a job, moving a location? It all became very, very independent way of looking at decisions in the life of professionals. What we have experienced in last 1 year, and I must say that now people know that how hard do I really work, how hard my colleague works, how hard my manager is, how much my wife influences for my work, what should I really do, and what should I realize that my team members family knows about the work culture of the organization, and they have a huge amount of influence to bring in on the decision making and the mindset of the people and the professionals. Organizations will have to perhaps Also, new age organizations will have to rather go to the process of integrating families in the overall work methodology. It is no more only for the PSUs and the large conglomerates wherein their family days will happen. It is also important now the organizations to bring in family, because families have learned to exert influence on the decision making of the profession. So that's another element which will be very, very important. So what I'm trying to say, I have many other points which I can really bring out, but perhaps I'll leave it for the later part of the conversation. But clearly, important is that redefine diversity and inclusion, ensure that trust and behaviors like this are getting measured very clearly by the organizations, ensure that now families are being brought back into the integrated ways of working in the organization. And keeping all this in mind, don't deviate and try to be superhero. You have to operate in your context. You can't completely devoid yourself and move out from the realities of the business in which you are, because you have to finally survive to do the business, and find a way and means so that business survives, culture gets retained, and you have a sustainable way of growing. That's what my initial thought would be, Dr. Saigal. And maybe I'll come back later on what else can really be done. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Srivastav. A great start to the panel, I think, and specifically the issues of trust and diversity. And I think you gave a very good exposition on the issues of family, and I will definitely come back to you on that. I would now like to move to Mr. Gopal Iyer, who's the Associate Director Talent at EY GDS. Gopal is a seasoned talent leader with over 17 years of experience working with large multinational organizations across various industries and geographies. Currently with EY, Gopal leads the Gig Now Global program that has a specific focus on attracting and engaging with people for gig assignments at EY. Gig Now is a talent marketplace that matches contract workers with gigs at iconic organizations around the world. He's a speaker in various HR forums and has spoken on numerous topics like the future skills in the world of HR and the relevance of current skills and how the business and talent landscape would change by 2025. Over to you, Mr. Iyer. You are muted.
Thank you. I'm going to just share my screen for a few minutes, and then probably we can take it from there. Are you able to see the screen? Perfect. So I think what all of the panelists and speakers have said, and thanks to JKBS for organizing this this event, really gives us an opportunity as professionals to share our perspectives with the talent of tomorrow or talent of today, with a view of what we have been focusing on in the last few years. And I think it boils down to really asking better questions to ourselves, and that's what our beliefs and purpose is. We at EY believe in asking better questions because that's how we believe on building a better working world. So I think what we have seen right now is a large-scale disruption that probably no one would have thought about or would have expected. But I think one of the things that we really need to ask ourselves is this a transformational opportunity or not? I think all of us agree to this aspect that the world of work is changing faster than any time in the history. And before we get into the world of work, I think we heard the perspectives on the workforce of tomorrow. But workforce of tomorrow is going to be part of the society that consumes from the businesses that exists. So if the businesses are doing well, I think the workforce of tomorrow will be able to do well. If the business doesn't do well, I think the workforce of tomorrow will have challenges as well. So what do we need to do to make sure that the businesses of tomorrow are able to do well? And who represents the businesses of tomorrow? It is us as individuals, collectively as part of organizations. And it's a change in the behavioral aspect of us as consumers that has led to this large scale disruption. The choices that we make, the way we have started consuming everything, our focus that has shifted from acquiring of assets to consuming assets. So classic example of being in in an Uberized world, what is it that is driving this change is something for us, all of us, to reflect upon. Uh, Great changes on account of industrialization, leading up to 4.0, Internet of Things, and all of that. But it is going to remain, the workforce of future is going to remain heavily tied to the consumption patterns of us as consumers. So we really need to check that. And what did we see in the last 1 year? Again, I think the disruption caused by the COVID just was at a pace that we probably couldn't really expect. And we also really saw immense business transformation. And the question really is, are we ready, or were we ready, or would we ever be ready? I think that's what we would want to reflect upon. Few aspects that all of you touched upon already, but I think the good aspect, if I were to focus upon, I think what we have realized in the last 12 to 18 months is the importance of coexistence. I think pre-COVID, there was a lot of element of competition and I want to be the best in the business. But I think in the last 12 months, a lot of changes, synergies have been brought in, which probably makes us believe that coexistence is the new mantra, right? Reimagined business operations. There is a supply driven demand creation focus across all the businesses that we do. And this is probably the Uberized way of doing business as well. Newer offerings were designed for newer customers, which probably we never could have tapped into in the past. Today, the focus on data is immense, and we already see data as the new oil, as being the jargon that's being used a lot more. Remote operations has become a new reality. We spoke about this, we heard about this from all the panelists before as well. The bad ones or the challenging ones are the ones who have not been able to come out of comfort zones, right? And the liquidity as well. The impact of all of this on employees and job seekers, so to all of you who is listening in to this conversation, is there is of course shifting in hiring patterns that we see. Remote working is the new normal. Uh, work uh, Workforces or organizations are now focusing on exceptional employee experience rather. And there is of course the changes to labor laws, taxation, and it will continue to disrupt. I think the new labor code, the new wage code, the new social security code, the new tax code, all of that will continue to disrupt the way everything gets done. What are the mega trends from an organizational overall industry standpoint that we see? Focus is on digital. I think we have a lot of people on this panel who have time and again said that there is going to be a digital wave, and it continues to drive everything that we do, including the way we get vaccinated or the way we are making ourselves opting for safety through Arogya Setu. Data-driven perspectives about every decision making. Work-life integration is the next important thing. Yuvraj said that wonderfully in his point of view. Purpose-driven organizations will continue to drive the future, and I think the focus will be on how do organizations bring out the purpose within individuals, and I think that's what is going to continue to drive the change. The demographic is going to be very different in the future, right? I think right now we have a lot of people who are still Gen Y, Gen Zs. Millennials will be by 2025. Millennials will be 75% of workforce. Would require us to reimagine everything that we do, including the way we communicate with people. And all of you guys listening onto the call would really agree to that as well. And I think the physical office space, I think would probably be not as much as it used to be in the past. It would be a hybridized version. And I think I would take this liberty to snatch away one of the quotes that Harjeet had made in one of his prior presentations. The new normal is working from hometowns and not work from homes anymore, right? And I think that's what is going to continue to drive the businesses to reimagine how we are able to connect with people. Though they are living virtually, they are staying virtually with families, with the internet connections, that how it is. And I think even within this 15, 20 minutes of what we have heard, We have seen challenges around technology as well. So I think these are mega trends, and these are realities that we need to really embrace. But how is that going to continue to evolve through all that we see in terms of disruption? I think the best way is, of course, to predict and create it rather, right? Careers for all of you. I think a lot of conversations that I've had in the last several quarters around what should I look from a career standpoint for myself. I think we always think that this is how the careers for most of people look like. We start in an organization, continue to grow, and we become the CHRO, CTO, CXOs of the world. But embrace yourselves for the newer normal of careers where it would be personalized, it would be for you, designed for what is right for you. So you may start, you may take a step back, you may grow up further. You may take an horizontal move, then a vertical move up, and then again a horizontal move, and then grow up. So I think you need to think about various ways in which you want to personalize your progression. And I think that's what is most important. So don't really think about or imagine your careers in the way your predecessors or your family members or your seniors in the business schools have seen their careers evolve as well. And all of this, I think, is going to continue to challenge you. uh, there is VUCA world, as we heard, but there is a lot more to that now in terms of uncertainty caused by COVID and several other disruptions around us. What we need to do differently is the question that we need to ask. So take a stock of the situation, visualize your future, ask yourself, what do you want to see, where do you want to see yourself, learn more about yourself at this point of time. Explore your options, make choices and set goals, and develop an action plan. I think that is what is needed for you to succeed in your career. Lastly, start now. Be a perpetual learner. McKinsey's report says the biggest worry in the future is learnability. If we remain in our comfort zones and not learn, it will be a challenge for us. So be a perpetual learner. The future careers require us to be a full stack professionals, a T-shaped career where you need to know 1 inch deep and 1 mile wide worth of knowledge. How can you build that in terms of breadth? Storytelling is something that is going to be extremely important. We'll hear more about that from Harjeet as well. He's a phenomenal one at that. But we all have wonderful stories, if not more, of the last 12 to 15 months of experience. Each one of us has gone through our own journeys within COVID. Can we make sense out of that and make business propositions, business solutions out of that? Practicing listening skills, in an environment like this where we are hearing each other, listening to each other, seeing each other virtually, can we listen in to each other a lot more and continue to ask questions? And I think that's pretty much sums it up for people who are listening onto this conversation in terms of what is it that you all need to do for yourselves as you enter into the workforce of the future. And there is a lot more that I'm sure will come out of the conversation that we will have in the next few minutes. But with that, I'll just hand it over back to Vishal Segalji.
Thank you, Mr. Iyer, and I think I will come back to you with specific lessons that you put in the last two slides. I will now introduce Mr. Harjeet Khandeja. He's an international speaker, author, poet, visionary, inventor, influencer, and an HR leader. He's an alumnus of IIT Roorkee and INSEAD. He's a Six Sigma Green Belt, and his book, Nothing About Business, was a bestseller on Amazon. He has been conferred with many accolades, including the HR Leadership Award and HR Personality of the Year. Harjeet has been a LinkedIn Power Profile and a TEDx speaker. Harjeet Khandeja, for you, please.
Thank you, Vishal. Am I audible? Okay, thank you. So guys, thank you for being there on a Saturday. I know it is painful. Sonia called me a few days back, and she told me that we are having a session online session where we want you to talk about future of workforce 2020 and beyond. So I asked her, do you think I am a parrot? She said, what do you mean parrot? I said, because future in our country, there is a guy sitting with parrot and parrot comes out and picks up perchy and parrot tells the future. So how can, are you seeing a parrot in me? And then Sonia educated me, look, this is not an Indian phenomena. This is a global phenomenon. If you see Soccer World Cup, they also use animals for predicting the future. So they picked octopus, they picked pig. So if you have to compare yourself, okay, why am I going there? I will tell you another story. I met a kid. He was holding his pant with both the hands. So I asked him, why are you holding your pant with both the hands? He said, if I don't hold it, it will go down and I will be exposed. He said, but if that is the case, why are you wearing these loose pants? He said, because my mom wants me to be future ready. The point I'm making here is we worry too much about future and we want to be future ready. Thing is, you have to be present ready. And you should have your wardrobe in such a manner that if something changes, you are able to change your clothes rather than wearing future clothes. Now understand, I also used to think that future of work is something which is a jargon which is created by consultants. But that is not the case. Somebody like Gopal actually taught me. And if you start thinking, if you're sitting in a bank and a discussion is happening, suppose if cash is not there in future, what will happen? So if cash is not there, do you require ATMs? Do you require bank branches? What will happen to the jobs of cashier? And that is how it affects the work which is happening and the jobs which are there in the ecosystem. Think of, I never thought that calculator industry will be competing with Google. And this industry is going down year by year because Google is eating their market share. People go to Google and do the calculation rather than buying a calculator. Now, 2022, we are talking about electric vehicles are going to come. Okay, if electrical vehicles come, what will happen to the petrol pumps? All those petrol attendants? So the jobs are going to change, and that is something we have to be prepared. Now you must be thinking, oh, cashier ka job jayega na? It is cashier or petrol attendant. I am an MBA. What will happen to me? Look, these guys have thought of something called platforms. So Uber has brought in platform. Swiggy has brought in platform. More and more. Make My Trip is also a platform. If you see, more and more platform related jobs are coming. Moment a platform related job, moment an organization becomes a platform organization, what happens is, have you ever seen a manager managing Uber drivers? Scheduling happens at platform level. So whatever routine managerial jobs are there, they get eliminated. That is going to happen in the future because more and more organizations are going to get into platform mode. And if they get into platform mode, the outcomes will be defined. There is going to be more gig economy. So the job of manager will get eliminated. And you must be now thinking, if job of manager is going to be eliminated, should I be doing MBA or not? Yes, you should be doing MBA. Why you should be doing MBA? Because in Uber also, what manager does is, manager engages workforce, that how many drivers are active at a particular time. So you need to launch incentive plans. In the beginning of the session, we were talking about you have to be creative, design thinking. These are the important things which you have to learn. Why you have to learn this? Because the nature of job is going to change from routine to this kind of job where you are introducing incentive plans, you are engaging people in such a manner that you are creating value. What you should be focusing on right now is the way economy is looking at this point in time. There are a lot of digital jobs which have come in. So there is digital marketing, digital content, those kind of jobs. Then security has suddenly become very important. E-commerce have become important. Supply chain has become important. Programming has become important. Consulting have become important. So the way you used to look at industries a year back, try to change that perspective and see if you have to prepare yourself for the present. How will you do that? By focusing your interest areas in alignment with where the industry is going. I believe that is what I have to say. Back to Vishalji.
Thank you, Mr. Khanduja. And I think being present ready is the critical part, and I hope all our students take that lesson. And we'll come back to the storytelling. I am already, the two lessons are well embedded in my mind. Thank you. I now introduce Preeti Narayan, who's the market HR leader of Google India. A seasoned leader, Preeti brings 2 decades of experience in HR in large international organizations across different industries. She's recognized in the industry as a leading HR voice on topics like well-being, inclusion, and talent management. She serves on the HR Council of FICCI. Before Google, she was the HR Director South Asia for AkzoNobel. She was the VP HR at GE and held leadership roles at GSK and UNICEF. Over to you, Preeti. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vishal. And the dilemma of being the last speaker in the session like this is that everything that you would have thought would be spoken has already been spoken, especially if you're following such a prolific panel. But I will attempt to talk about the future of work. And I really like what Harjeet said, that it's about not only being future ready, but present ready too. And that's where it starts. So how are we going to be ready in the present as well as prepare ourselves for the future is the way I would like to speak about the topic. And firstly, thank you to the JK Business School for putting together this panel. I think during the pandemic, one of the things that has kept us energized is to be participating in these online conferences and in a way to connect with students. And I can only imagine the situation of students who would have gotten into business schools with an idea of experiencing the industry and having, the real classroom experience. And all of that has been taken away from them during this, unfortunate year that we've passed, and looks like it will continue in the coming near future too. So my, agility and adaptability is one of the core skills for all of us. But what I would like to do, since almost everything that I would have thought should be spoken has already been said, is I thought I will talk a little bit about how Google has dealt with this. And I know that there was some thing about, whether we want to speak about our organizations, but I think I do want to share about how Google has led this. And because 2020 was, defining year for business worldwide, and we were no different. So, and most of our workforce, which was spread across the globe, support key services that were critical in an environment where people urgently needed reliable information through products like search, maps, YouTube. And it was for us, it was imperative to balance our public responsibility to citizens and governments with the well-being of our employees. And to us, neither was negotiable once the pandemic broke out. So we started with that framework and background. And the first thing that happened, like with everybody else, is that most of our Googlers actually shifted from work. And then we asked ourselves, how can we ensure the safety and well-being of our employees to be a priority? How can we ensure that? And at the same time, how do we enable these employees to transition to work from home effectively? And the question on well-being and resilience continued. And then how do we know what's been working? So one of the things that defines our approach to human resources, in fact, to everything that happens at Google, is a data-driven approach. And we regularly invite Googlers to provide feedback on productivity, well-being, how they are feeling and coping. And here, so I thought I will spend my 10 minutes on what we've learned so far. So one of the first things is having a direct line to employees is invaluable. And we want to make sure that we understand how our Googlers are feeling during this time. So listening in, getting constant feedback, and what we receive from our Googlers is important, and we want to be there when it matters. So some of the initiatives that you may have heard of in the past, and some you may hear for right now, is the first thing we did to enable an agile workforce is to put together an internal task force, which was a team that coordinated and managed Google's global response. And then we had a global team, then we had regional team, and then we have country teams. So essentially, was like a 24/7 air traffic control center for COVID-19. After this, to ensure that we provided accurate and up-to-date information on COVID-19, we established an internal site. We also set up an information hub to help people find information about COVID. Which offered details about office closure because things were happening very rapidly right in the beginning. Advice on remote working, mental health resources, because again, for each individual, mental health would and challenges being faced in their personal lives would be very different. And just to give you some some information, this internal website has been visited 6 million times globally in the last year. And it continues to be the central resource for COVID-19 related information. So I think from a learning perspective, making sure that if something is a priority, focusing our resources there, making sure information is disseminated in an even manner and as quickly as possible, and finding that in the midst of crisis, finding that is absolutely essential. Now, the other thing is that everybody's situation changed. Schools closed, parental responsibilities skyrocketed overnight, and we heard from many Googlers through various internal challenges on their experiences and concerns. So one of the first things we did was announce a 6-week of what we called carer leaves. And when the pandemic continued and schools continued to remain closed, we extended that leave by 8 more weeks. So now Googlers have a total of 14 weeks paid off, which they can use flexibly according to personal caregiving needs. This was one of the first and the biggest changes we made. Now, again, we want Googlers to be healthy and happy even while they're working from home. And we started receiving inquiries from Google about loaning furniture and equipment from office to work from home. At that point in time, what we did was to make sure that the right equipment to stay productive, we provided a work from home allowance to expense for necessary equipment. I'm working on one such equipment right now. And this included office furniture, anything that you wanted to make sure that you had a workspace at home, and $1,000 was given to each Googler across the globe to be able to use that. The other one was because there was this whole thing on Googlers being running nonstop, and there was this fear of burnout. Also, lines were getting blurred between what was work at home and work from home. And to ensure that Googlers were taking time off to prioritize their well-being, Googlers were given 2 official days off last year, and this practice continues this year. And then, of course, there was mental health, and it was our first priority to safeguard the mental health of employees. And we had various practices internally, both within India and globally, on how we ensure the well-being and mental health of our employees. So I'm going to pause here because I was told that we have only 10 minutes per speaker, and hand it back to you, Vishal.
Thank you so much. And I have a variety of themes, and I had a series of questions, and I think given the depth of ideas that have come up, I'm throwing all those questions out of the windows. There are a few themes that I now want to follow, and Yuvraj spoke about change and trust and inclusion and diversity, and I think I want to follow that theme as one part. Gopal talked about career graphs and disruptions, amongst other things. And Harjeet talked about being present ready, and Preeti has talked about how the coping mechanisms have moved forward and on. So I think I'll start with Gopal Iyer and ask him a very pointed, and I would request after Gopal has spoken that others please chip in on the idea. But the idea here is very simple. our target audience of about 200 people right now is students, but also other people who are here. I would ask, as senior leaders, both as business leaders, but importantly also as HR leaders, what advice do you have for students specifically to manage their careers in light of the rate of change accelerating and discontinuities coming in? And one of the themes that I get from speakers is that you need to take charge of your own career and plan it the way you would want with your own personalities. So how do you do that? I don't think that is taught. So what advice would you have for students, especially B-school students, on managing? I would ask Gopal to first go ahead with that, followed by Harjeet, then Preeti, and then Yuvraj after that. Please, Gopal.
Sure. So I think the last 12 to 15 months, especially given the lockdown around the world, has been extremely difficult, challenging, surprising in many ways. I don't think people would have expected their dreams to be looking the way it is right now in terms of career options post MBA or any kind of master's degree or graduation and all of that. And I think there was this expectation that once we would complete the educational qualification, we would probably be placed. I think I touched upon this in my talk earlier as well, around the behavioral aspect of the human beings is going through a massive change in the way we are consuming things as well. And that reflects in the way organizations are now looking at engaging with people as well. So if you have studied, and I keep giving the same reference point, right? If you did your MBA in HR 30 years ago, and you probably would have called yourself as personal management and industrial relations leader, or HR human resource management leader. And this was only a broader HR function where you would do everything from hiring to retiring or firing as well. And you would have a very lean, small team. Today, with the changes in the business cycles, we need specialists, and in many cases super specialists as well. So we today have talent acquisition team, you have a compensation and benefits team, or total rewards team as they call, you have an analytics team to analyze what is my workforce projections going to look like when people leave and go. How should I do benchmarking? How should I get more people into the organization and all of that? You have an employee relations team, you have people who take care of your exits, and several others. And then all of this around the world of stakeholders, which could be any other team that supports the talent team, and then of course business as well. So if you can imagine yourself as an HR professional for a moment, if the whatever learnings you would have around strategic HR and everything else that you learn and join a workforce, you'd suddenly realize that, oh, there is a lot of speciality that I need to still learn. I may not know how to source a profile. I may not know how to interview a candidate. I may not know behavioral sciences. I may not know what is analytics. I may not know many other things. So if you stop learning the moment you enter the workforce, I think you will have challenges growing further and even probably adapting to the workforce. So I think the learnability should be something that should be continuous and don't stop at the time when you're exiting your B school. The second piece of advice I would say is, don't look at one size fits all kind of solutions, where don't come with the expectation that I have done these kind of certifications, curriculum, qualifications, and all of that. Full-time jobs in a large multinational is the only choice. I think we speak really high about entrepreneurial mindset and spirits. Probably a lot of focus also can be given into getting into the startup zone. And there are a lot of startups that are coming in today requiring a lot of people. Can you dabble? I think the ability to dabble between multiple options, learn, get more exposure is something that will take you further as well. And how you continue to get better experiences, and because a lot of people may find themselves, oh, I'm not getting the kind of jobs that I'm expecting, while then you go ahead and do many other things that you may want to do, and then maybe a year down the line when the market is really at its best, or a couple of years down the line the market is really at its best, you would have tons of experience in diverse fields, that shows that you have skills and capabilities to perform any role that you may want to. So be open, be open to learn, be open to flex yourselves, be independent, be entrepreneurial, be agile. Are some of the things that I would share as some of the asks that people may want to take forward.
Karjit.
So I will start with a story. When this entire lockdown started, I got a call from my dry cleaner. I picked up the call. He said, do you need vegetables? I again checked the number. It was dry cleaner only. So I asked that guy, boss, you are a dry cleaner. Your core competency is dry cleaning. How come you are selling vegetables? So he told me, sir, my core competency is not dry cleaning. My core competency is adaptability. Till yesterday, you needed dry cleaning, so I was providing dry cleaning. Now you need vegetables, so I'm selling vegetables. This is one thing which you have to keep with yourself. If a dry cleaner can understand that, then you also need to understand this is how you have to change with time. I will give you an example of the morning. Look, the best statement in this entire seminar was made by you guys. That was, arguments are there to find out who is right, and discussion is there to find out what is right. And after that, what happened? His video froze. Fine. That was a bad timing. Now, will you put a question mark on his talent, because he still made the best argument on this webinar? But video froze. He could not do anything about it. Unfortunately, same thing has happened with you guys. COVID has happened. Now, what will you do with it? It is not a question mark on your capability or your caliber. So that is something which is very important to understand. Don't blame yourself for what is happening around you. Keep your confidence intact. Look, Amway does this in a very good manner. They tell their salespeople, you will knock 100 doors. 99 will say no. And then you will get one success. Look, in your case, you only have to get one success. It is not that jobs are not there in the market. Thing is, you will have to search, and you will have to search hard. Not even one single industry is there which is not hiring. Every industry is hiring, although number of opportunities are less. You need to be that hard going and knocking each and every door and keeping your confidence. Yes, you are good. Stand in front of mirror and tell yourself you are good, and keep knocking doors till the time you get the match you are looking for. That is one. Second is, don't waste your time. That, okay, when COVID will be over, then we will see. Don't get into that mindset. Look, my aunt came to live with us last year, and we thought we will live our life again when she will go back. She went for 2 days and again came back. Then we decided, let's move on with our life. So COVID is just like my aunt. It is going to be there. So you have to learn how to live with it. So live with it, that in COVID, what is that can be done in a great manner. You can either go for further studies, or what you can do is You can pick up a job of your interest. Suppose you are interested in digital marketing. Pick an NGO who is looking for a guy who has done digital marketing, add to your skills, or start working on a platform called Upwork where you start selling your skills, and you will also come to know how good your skills are. And if you hone your skills, when the pandemic is over, there will be many takers because you have not wasted time. And understand, from World War I to World War II to 9/11 to 2008 global crisis to monetary crisis which happened in the country, each and every crisis had a period of 2 years. After 2 years, everything came to where it started from. Even Maggie crisis, which took the Nestle down, 2 years, they were back with Maggie. So no crisis goes beyond 2 years, because that is how we are as human race. We don't give up. So don't give up. Everything will be fine. You just don't have to lose faith in yourself. That is the most important thing. Over to you, Vishalji.
Preeti, your comments, if any.
Yeah, sure. I think for students, firstly, I would say, again, at the risk of repeating, that agility of learning is the key to this situation or any situation. And I think any crisis actually offers an opportunity. So I know you must be so tired of hearing the same thing, thinking all grown-ups are constantly saying the same thing about, keeping your skills updated and keeping your, yourself engaged, etc. But at the same time, getting offline, and then the fatigue of online work would be getting onto everybody. So there is obviously a lot going on. What I would say is that apart from all the stuff that is being said on developing your skill sets and all that, focus on your mental health. Focus on what brings you joy. Focus on being there for each other. Pick up that phone, speak to that person. If you find that there is something that somebody's not sharing, or is not connecting enough with you people, whatever it is, sometimes even behind the brightest smiles there's some issue that is there, and students can really be there for each other. So build that network. You may call it network, I think it's human connections. And I would share a story about redwood trees. So redwood trees are some of the oldest trees in the world. And one would imagine, if all of us have studied a little bit of this in science in school, that trees that are very strong usually have very deep roots, and they're very, very strong and sturdy because of the deep roots that hold them firmly to the ground. But if you look at redwood forests, you'll learn that they are the oldest forests in the world. Those trees are sometimes centuries old, and they have withstood all sorts of calamities and vagaries of nature. So how have they been able to do that? But when scientists went and started studying these trees, they realized that the trees were actually not very deep roots. The roots were actually very shallow and close to the surface. But what held them apart from the other trees and kind of made sure that they kept strong to the year was that these trees had roots that actually expanded and held on to each other, to the other redwood trees. So that network held those trees strongly and kept them strong for centuries to come. So I find this story personally, I mean, when I read about it, I'm like, wow, this is exactly what human connections do. And I think this time is a time to build that network, be there for each other. You'll never forget this time when in your MBA, the 2 years of MBA that you are doing, 2 years or 1 year, whichever program you're doing, this was a year when you actually did everything online. But in that online period, if you are able to build that network for you and be there, genuinely be there for your peers and build that deep connection, believe me, 20 years down the line or 30 years down the line, those networks and those connections will, whatever may the career journey be, the personal journey of growth will be phenomenal.
You're right.
I think a lot has been already covered, but let me just make few quick points. I think there has been advantage for the students. And how is that advantage? One is the myth has broken that losing job is not okay. Losing job is okay. Doesn't make any difference. changing job quickly is also okay, because your reality and your context can be very different. So don't worry. You can still make choice. We are more or less now evolving as a country. Westerners perhaps used to take a sabbatical and break after every 6 months or 1 year, but now we are also learning. It's fine. I think that I have seen people coming to me and telling me that if you are right sizing me, don't ask me to resign, give me a termination. I think it will help me and get a better job, sort of a thing. I think that's something which is important. The reduction in compensation is fine. It's contextual. Don't worry. In case you are going from an X salary to X minus is also fine. So these are some of the realities or the evolutions which have happened. So don't get too caught up on that. Other thing is, keep in mind that life is not fair. Life differentiates. Don't compare yourself. Differentiation happens at the campus right on day one, people who get selected on day zero and people who get selected day four. That the day itself differentiation happens when you start looking at, when you look at the beginning of the career, some people go to IIM, some people go to other campuses, some go to very different engineering colleges. So life differentiates and life gives opportunity for everyone. It's important for you to be making best use of what you have and be happy with it, rather than really deriving comparisons with a set of realities which can create dissonance for you. That's something which I tell people to keep in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Yuvraj. So I have a host of questions. I will now move to Mr. Khanduja, and specifically, we've all talked about the change happens in a context, and you've all given stories of various kinds. So my next question to you is, how do you think the society is going to change as a consequence of what we are seeing? And somebody spoke of, I think it was you who spoke of working not from home, but working from hometown. But that has major ramifications on the structuring of the society as well. Small, places coming up, but also the issues of trust and all of that. So, if you can delve on that, that'll be a great input.
So, look, society is already changing because of certain interventions. One of that intervention is pizza. We started getting pizza in 30 minutes. So expectations of the society changed. Now a person comes and says, okay, give me service letter. You can't tell him, okay, we'll give it to you tomorrow. Guys, this pizza comes in 30 days. Do you have to put cheese on the letter? So this is one fundamental change which has come. Another change which has brought in by YouTube. That change is that now I don't have to watch anything at your time. I can watch things at my time. So that concept of my time has already come in the society. After COVID, what has started happening is people have started using more digital. So it is not that digital was not there. So I remember one old person, he is my friend, he is around 70. So his pension was not, his pension was coming, and because of COVID, he was in a question mark zone that if I don't go to the pension office and declare that I am alive, they will stop my pension. So I told him, don't worry, we will talk to the pension officer. So talk to the pension officer. He said, sir, don't worry at all. We understand this is COVID. So what we will do is, we will verify your presence on WhatsApp. We will do a video call, verify your presence on WhatsApp, and it will be sorted. So I thought my friend will be happy, but he was furious. He said, if this was possible, then why you made me travel for past 8 years? You could have done this 8 years back also. Whether you talk about work from home, work from hometown, or working after 60. Why do we restrict that you have to work till 58? These are all artificial boundaries which we have created. Many of these artificial boundaries are going to get broken. And the moment you break these artificial boundaries, then you actually land up into gig kind of economy, where Yuvraj was talking about that losing job is not a problem anymore. So those taboos are getting broken, and that is how society is changing. So business always catches up with society. So as the society changes, business will also change.
Thanks. I think what I will do is, since I have a lot of questions, I will start targeting them to individual panelists. And please feel free after that if you have an important point to make to jump in. So Preeti, you talked about importance of networks. And the question here is that that most students and most people believe that networks are built with physical interaction. So how do you build a network now when physical interaction is not happening, and with face-to-face not being possible? How do you take that next step and not only build those networks, but how do you nurture them going forward? How do you tell people that I'm there? And you spoke about empathy and all of that. So specifically in a work context, can you talk a bit more about it? Because I think that's an important thing that I have seen a lot of chatter on the chat on this issue.
I think that's a very pertinent, Vishal. The networks are not built on whether it's physical or virtual. I think the question on virtual and physical, we've already overcome that barrier with the help of video facilities, whatever platform we may use. I think networks are built from the heart. If you're genuinely interested in helping another person, that's how a network is built. So if I go to you and ask and think my network is going to be built because Vishal is going to do something for me in the future, that network will never be a healthy network. But if I go and say, oh, maybe Vishal and I both can gain something out of this, there can be something that I can support him with, and that will make the world a better place, or the environment. And world may be too global, but if it's the environment or the area that we're working in, if we can both benefit that objective, then the network will be good. So the network has to be based on a mutual interest, and the first step has to be, what can I do to be a part of this network? Not what most people make that mistake is, they start randomly reaching out to strangers or to people that they've known really in a very limited way over social platforms or even directly, hoping that they will get something in return. But that's not networking, that's pestering. I think networking will happen if I can say I will help the person in front of me with this, and this is how we both together can help this world. Or just being there with each other. And the networking doesn't have to be always professional. Again, like I said, if there's somebody who needs something even in their personal space, we're all human beings in the first instance. And if you can provide that support, even if it's just a listening ear, that is a start of a network.
I think that's a hugely relevant learning. I think for all the students, that you have to be giving before you start receiving. And I thank you for making that point very clearly. And I'll come to others on this. But a very specific question now to Yuvraj, and on something that you had spoken. And this is something that we've been talking about, specifically about work-life balance. Since the structure of families is changing and the work has reached your home, how do you ensure work-life balance? So is it possible? When I was younger, and I remembered an Economic Times conclave where a senior speaker, industry doyen, said, India is getting built. We don't have time for work life. If we don't have work, there will be no life. But I think in 20 years, all of that has changed. So how do you do that personally, but also as an organization? How do you end up respecting the time of the employee and build structures that are compassionate in that sense of the word?
It's a great question, Shal, and I think that many times discussions have happened around work-life balance. And a simple answer, what everybody would really love to listen to this is that, if you start considering your work as your life, then I think there's no need of a work-life balance, you enjoy and you continue to work. But I don't think that's always the reality. I think so let's look at why do you really ask this question of work-life balance? Do you ask a question from your wife and a child that, yeah, I need to go to work, enough of family balance, I don't want to really do it, because perhaps you love that relationship and you love to be in that relationship, right? You don't ask your son, you don't ask your wife that why you pestering me, or why you asking me things which are not relevant, and why are we together 24 hours sort of a thing. It's only because of comfort. So first thing is that, do you have a relationship with your workplace and with your managers and the people which is comforting? If you don't have it, you feel it as an infringement. So can organization help people create relationships which are far more seamless? It's not only professional, it is also personal. It is a comfort. If I am okay to really talk to a manager at any point of time, I think that I'll never say that I hate relationship or I hate his call sort of a thing. It's absolutely fine. Do we really feel allergic about the call of our friends at any point of time? We don't, because they are friends and you say that, yeah, it's a great to get your call sort of things. I think important is to look at the root cause and eliminate this whole thought of work-life balance is an infringement. So that's point number one from the organization point of view. Second is, I think if we come to the organizations, these are cultural issues. These are not individual issues. And for me, if I have to set anything right, which is not in line with the majority of people's mindset of the working style, I'll say I will ensure that top 10% of the people in the organization will follow a simple protocol. In my organization, I think I never get call from Deep or Rajesh on Saturdays and Sunday. I never get a WhatsApp chat and anything for that matter. And this is what I learned. And I'm a strong believer of the fact that organizations, people enter in the organizations and they observe people. And if they observe people doing something which is acceptable norm, they follow it. If they see something which is not happening, which is not an acceptable norm, people don't do it. So I think clearly tone for the top in terms of the work-life balance, whatever way you want to define is important. So while my first point was more from the people who feel disturbed and who get caught up about the work-life balance, my second point is more about the organization, that how do you drive the culture from the top around work-life balance. That's what I would like to say on this, Vishal.
So thank you. That's an extremely pertinent point, and I had a few questions lined up on certain other things, but I will stop here and come back to you and all four of you actually on this important point, because one of the things that I now that I mentor and work with a lot of college-going kids, I realize is that that students and children, they observe, they don't listen to you what they are saying, and I think that's a very important point that you made. And in that context, I would like to hear from all of you, and maybe we'll start with Harjeet this time. How do you build that trust culture, inclusivity, the loser context, things that we are all talking about, and both from an organizational perspective, but also what can I do as a student who's now entering into this workforce to build that. So after Harjeet, I will go to Preeti, then to Gopal, and finally back to you, Yuvraj, on this set of quote unquote softer issues. Harjeet, please. Unmute, Harjeet.
Sure. Thank you. One way of building trust is communication. That you start talking to people, because if nobody is connecting, then you start creating a castle in your mind that something wrong is going to happen. That is what we are prone to. And when we hear a lot of negative news, anxiety comes in. And it is important to take care of that anxiety. So when you talk and clarify doubts, and it is not that a HR person has to sit and talk. If a manager is talking to the employee, that is the best way of engaging or connecting a person and building a trust and building trust. In fact, if you see in army, people don't fight for country, people fight for their sabji. And that sabji is very, very important because sabji gives them trust. So in corporate culture also, in fact, this Yuvraj would be stating better than me. I have heard this story. He would have lived this story. Look, another important thing is, if business results are there, then anxiety is all time down. If business is not doing well, then these kind of questions of trust and things like that start coming in mind. So how are you focusing on business in such a manner that okay, so my phone has started ringing and I don't know why. Oof, I did not realize that can also happen. So point is, another way of building trust is that you start performing on the business thing rather than, suppose if your health is not good, then important is to take medicine, important is to take right kind of food so that you improve your health rather than doing artificial makeup in the name of employee engagement or building trust. Trust comes when the real issue is solved. Trust doesn't come by saying, okay, Vishal, I want you to trust me. On what basis you will trust me? So, and fundamentally, if you see, trust is of two types: cognitive trust and affection based trust. So cognitive trust happens when you start thinking, oh, this guy is doing well in business, and cognitive trust is more comforting. And second is when you start communicating, you build trust by creating affection so that people feel that there is trust. That's what my take on it is.
Preeti?
I think trust is about sharing. Trust cannot be commanded or demanded. It has to be, first you have to display trust and then only receive trust. And in that tenet, I think the first thing organizations can do is to display transparency in the way they work. For instance, at Google, transparency is part of our mission statement, and we default to sharing as much as possible with our employees. So everything, be it our internal product launches, before they're made out public, mostly they're shared internally. So transparency is the key to everything that you do. And I would just say that first give trust and then receive trust. That's true for organizations. That's true in individual relationships, and that's just the way human beings work.
Yuvraj?
So I think Harjeet and Preeti covered pretty much what we had. We can move to the next question perhaps. Yeah.
Okay, so I will then, we are, I think, 10 minutes left. So I'll have one question to each of you and maybe go on to close. So Preeti, how do you think leadership styles have changed due to the pandemic? And as managers, what is it that is more expected of you, and the challenges that you face as a manager?
I think leadership by its various sense. I'm not talking about managing. I'm not talking about managers. I'm talking about leadership. Leadership by its very essence is about standing in front of your team to be there when the uncertain happens. Managers manage processes, leaders manage events like these where things are absolutely unpredictable. So the core skills for leadership, and we've spoken a lot about it, is agility and adaptability. I think empathy goes a long way because for each individual, the situation is being dealt with differently. And one of the daily examples, which I'm sure all of us are experiencing in our lives, is how we have actually gone into people's homes. So instead of people coming to the workplace has reached into people's homes. And we've all seen colleagues kind of juggling with challenges both from a work perspective. You may have a colleague who's trying to make a presentation and has a 4-year-old who's just refusing to let go of them. And this happens across the board, right? And it happens to both men and women. How do you deal with that situation at that point, whether it's with empathy, whether it's with patience, and realizing that that human connection is more important than anything else that the business might be doing at that stage? So I think at the top of everything, I would put empathy, I would put ability to be able to be adapting and to unlearn. So we all are product of our circumstances. We've learned things around the way, and now suddenly everything has changed. I have seen some very traditional managers in traditional organizations who believe that work from home is essentially somebody not logging in leave but taking leave as a result, and just using that time to do their own thing. And very, very strong leaders driving strong business results and being absolutely unacceptable about work from home. And I personally, in my career, had a lot of discussions, very intense discussions with such leaders. And I've now seen them completely adapt and realize that work from home is a possibility. So I think making changes within yourself is the first point when crisis hits.
So Gopal, next question to you, and specifically in terms of the gig economy and the careers that you spoke about. So two parts of that question. The first is the use of technology and how the processes within the organization have changed to ensure that work from home is followed. And part B of that is, does that have any impact on the governance structures? The audits and stuff like that, both internally and as well as externally. Do your investors or tax authorities and stuff like that look at you differently? But so that's one part of a complicated question. And the second part is, in this light, what would your advice be to business schools in terms of pivoting teaching, of larger areas, and not just the HR as a subject?
Sure. So I think the second question would require a separate webinar in itself, but I'll try to answer that in a bit. The first one, I think, if you look at it from a candidate's perspective and an organizational perspective, I think the focus has shifted on, and this is something that Harjeet touched upon as well, platforms, right? I mean, I think today everything is about ease of doing business, ease of doing processes, so that we have as much lesser manual intervention as possible, and at the same time the experience of the individual who is actually making that process work is not getting impacted. And I think this will only continue to evolve. We've just started seeing organizations adopt to the platform economy for hiring as well. Like, I think we've always had other platforms like LinkedIn, Naukri, and all of those, but they were predominantly only to look at it from a attraction to onboarding per se, but everything else from onboarding to exit was managed offline within the organizational framework. But when we talk about platforms like Upwork or Fiverr or many others that are existing in market, they take care of the entire life cycle. So from a governance standpoint, when you have a platform like that, it takes care of most of it because they have intelligent dashboards which are driven by AI and machine learning to be able to give you insights into whether you're doing things the right way. Do you need to do anything differently? Are you hiring the right talent? Is the cost prohibitive? Is it and many more insights that you need to be able to do your business well. More and more as organizations adopt to this, they will continue to get the best out of it for themselves as well. Now, from a candidate standpoint, it is important for them to be on these platforms, to be available, as similar as or as simple as you downloading an Uber app or an Ola app or a Make My Trip app and kind of be there on the platform and use it or exercise your I would say rights to be able to get the right job at the right time whenever you need, which probably doesn't exist in the conventional job search methods. And I think that's what platform economies will drive in the future as well. Now, coming to the second question, I think the world of gig requires, from a skill standpoint, access to micro skills. The world of gig thrives on micro tasks, and micro tasks meaning, can I get this invoice processed? Now, if I need to just get the invoice processed, I don't need to be an MBA in finance to be able to do that. I would need someone with understanding of the financial aspects, the formatting aspects of it, the tax laws a bit, and a bit of finance fundamentals to understand what does it require for someone to process an invoice, or what does it require for someone to source a candidate, or what does it require to probably fix or probably deliver a training. What does it require for someone to do a small task that is part of the overall ecosystem of the work, or job description in the traditional way. So in light of micro tasks, there needs to be focus on micro skills, which is why if you see the non-conventional organizations or institutions like Upgrad, Emeritus, Hereditas are all today focusing on shorter duration learnings, micro scaling of students, where I think the focus is on just that. I mean, data analytics, that's a curriculum or a course by itself. So how do we blend that, bring it together in an hybridized format for the students, is something that is for business schools to think about, which is why I think there is a lot of collaboration happening today between Coursera and a lot of business schools as well, so that platforms like Coursera, Udemy, Upgrad, and several others complement the learnings that B schools traditionally give them, and of course bridge the gap between the industry and academia through industry leaders coming and delivering the sessions themselves as well.
Thank you. And a final question to Harjeet before I have the last question to you, Raj, is the workforce is now, as I hear and I saw pictures that Gopal had put in, is becoming more integrated in terms of there are people, but there are also robots, there is AI, there is data analytics, there are bots that are talking, and in light of micro skills that Gopal talked about, I think there is more micro measurement and stuff like that. So how does this integration impact the workforce, most importantly, but also the HR function to contribute to the success of the organization?
Vishal, you watch cricket?
I do.
So in cricket, what has started happening is they have brought in these cameras where they simulate the ball movement, whether this person will be out or not. All those AI related tools, they have already integrated with the game. Now, has it changed players? Still, bowler bowls the way bowler bowls. And after that, post-mortem happens. And maybe in the training of the bowler, those inputs are used that you can change your bowling style in this particular manner, but finally it is the bowler who plays. Second is how you play. That has come into an auction. If you see the way world has changed, earlier all these decisions used to happen inside the room. Now they happen openly on public platforms. So the way society is taking it, or the way like in household also, if you see, earlier we used to do all our work on our own. Now there is mixer grinder, there is a washing machine. They have made your life easier. Have they changed your behavior? Yeah, you have more time, so you can invest your time in better things. Same thing is going to happen to organizations. There are works which are physical heavy. Those works are being taken by technology or robotics. There are routine scheduling tasks which are being picked up by AI. So it is going to give us more space for being creative, taking human race to the next level. So if you see it that way, it will be more comfortable. I will give you one last example and then I will stop. You have seen motorcycle. We can run at a speed of say 25 kilometer per hour, 20 kilometer per hour. motorcycle can race up to 100 kilometer per hour or 150 kilometer per hour. So are we competing with motorcycle, or are we sitting on motorcycle and saying now we are faster? So whatever technology is happening, we have to sit on that technology and we have to become faster. This is how we should look at technology.
Wonderful point, I think, and well driven. Thank you so much. And that brings me to the last question to you, Raj. And with this online, offline, hybrid modes, how do you ensure the importance of human touch remaining where it is? Whether it is in HR functions, interrelationships, networks, whatever else.
So it's a great question, but I think it has a linkage with what Harjeet was also saying, that that while you can't really ignore technology, you need to use technology. Similarly, if you look at delivery, workplace, relationships, I think it all has to be done more from the touch and feel. The doctors have all the equipment, but at the same time, they also say that clinical check or a physical check is needed despite of having everything, all the reports on the table somewhere. So I think that can only happen by having that physical and emotional touch with the connect with the people. In terms of the organizations, I think they have to be very conscious of the fact that in this whole melee of so much of technology coming through, the overall human touch should not really get diluted. And how do they do it? Every organization will figure out its own way of doing it. I think many organizations have already learned doing it. Google does it in a very different way. Organizations which are in consulting, while they don't meet very frequently, they still have their own ways of connecting with people, sharing thoughts. They have different type of platforms. So organizations have done it. I think focus should be clearly to build great relationship within the organizations. And if you crack that element of relationship and personal mutual trust, I think that rest all can be really taken care of. And I'm sure that technology, as Harjeet was also saying, that it can only be enabler. It should not become the driver for everything. And as long as you can continue to have emotions as a drivers of decision making, I think you can continue to do well. That's how I will look at maintaining that balance between the emotional connect and how organizations should really drive it.
Thank you, Yuvraj, and Sonia has come online as 12:55 was the time. Sonia, can I ask for a small indulgence? May I give 1 minute each to all the speakers to kind of make their last comments, and that way we will still be able to finish by 1:05. I hate going over time, but I think in this wide discussion that we have had, it'll be a great idea to sum up. So, if,
Surely.
so.
Yes, so we can do that for sure. I am just though about to launch a poll. At JKBS, we're very big believers in feedback and in understanding how our sessions have been received, and that is how we improve. So, sir, before you do that, I've just launched the poll. If everybody here can just fill that out, and I will just hand back over to you before the thank you note. Okay?
Yep. Thank you so much. So, panelists, please volunteer and let's start with a 1 minute summing up. Whoever wants to go first.
Let me go first. What I would like to say to the students is, apart from everything else that you've heard, I know you're young, I know there's a lot happening in the world, and I know none of you like to be cooped in. My only urge to all of you is stay safe, stay indoors, wear your mask, and the more each of us participate in making this safer and staying indoors when it's not absolutely necessary, the sooner the pandemic will get over. So I think we each have a part to play, and I know there's frustration, but every time we come in contact with another person and for something that's not absolutely essential, we actually somewhere are the drop in the ocean which enhances the pandemic. So let's do our part of wearing a mask and staying indoors and washing our hands. Thank you.
Okay, I will go next. So again, I will start with a short story. I wrote a book during the pandemic. So one of my friends called me And he said, congratulations. I said, thank you. He said, but I will not read your book. I said, why will you not read my book? He said, because it is on Kindle and I don't have Kindle. So I told him, boss, for reading the book, you don't need Kindle. You can download Kindle app on your phone and you can read the book. The point I'm making here is many a times we think that we don't have tools for doing something. So don't think you don't have tools. If you look around, you will find all the tools are there for whatever you want to do. Don't put a constraint on yourself by saying, I can't do this. Try to see possibilities. You will be able to do many things.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Yuvraj.
Go ahead, Gopal. Please go ahead.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. So I think what we have heard in the last 120 minutes odd is the fact that there is a lot of change that's happening any which ways. So you also heard us saying that you have to do a lot to upscale, keep learning. One of the quotes says that the illiterate of 21st century is not the one who cannot read or write, but one who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And I think in the last 12 to 15 months in COVID as well, what we have learned is that whatever we thought as this is what is going to be the reality got changed. Whoever were in comfort zones have now learned learn from their mistakes. So continue to learn, unlearn. We have unlearned a lot, and I think the story that Harjeet also said about the pension office is a classic one. We need to look at ways to keep challenging ourselves from the norms, and that's what my submission would be.
Yeah. So I think I consider myself as a optimist and also a person who's uh, practical more in terms of thought processes rather than really looking at something which is very academic. And what I feel last 12 months have been a point of reflection for everyone. I think that we should not try to really decipher too much out of it. After a certain period of time, God and the time gives you opportunity to sit back, relax, and reflect. And when you start your vehicle in the next gear for the next destination, please draw learnings from these 12 months and try to bring it in to your learnings or the experiments for the future. Develop courage to experiment the way you developed, and overnight you became hybrid, and you overnight became work from home, and overnight you became leaner in the structure. Those experiments should give you strength to feel that you can do it even in the peacetime and need not really wait for the wartime to really get into these things. Second thing for the students especially is that, I think it has given huge opportunity for everyone. I would love to see people who don't get the right jobs when they want to start coming together and starting an entrepreneurial journey for themselves. 4 or 5, and I think it is a very, very interesting thing what is happening. And we as employer, we as HR professionals value experience around entrepreneurial venture, doing something on your own, even greater than what people will bring from the organizations where they work. So I think somewhere can we have pods getting created wherein people start experimenting in the last semester, doing things which can really become a business model? Can they be really looking for the funding? Have at least 20% students going through that process. That learning will be very, very good for everyone, and it will hold them in good stead. That's what my advice to the students would be, and I hope somebody is listening to follow that. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you
I,
so much.
I just had one more thing to say, and I would not feel that this session is complete if I haven't said it. And I want to reach out to all the women in the classroom and others who are from underrepresented groups. This pandemic has impacted women and the underrepresented groups more than any other section. And it is our responsibility as all of us as panelists who are leaders in our organizations and in society, and Vishal and Dr. Sanjeev, to make sure that this gap is addressed. But if you are a woman, you'll often notice you are in minority in a room, as I can see also on the screen in front of me. Speak up and reach out if you feel your voice is not being heard. Make sure that you do not let the society or the structures that have been in place be kind of come in the way of your success, because you owe this not only to yourself but to generations of women in the society who haven't even reached this level of education. So make the best use of your education, and I know it's not always an easy road, but if you reach out for support and you ask for help from whether your family, friends, colleagues, it always comes in. So all the best.
So thank you, and listening to this panel, I'm reminded of something that I heard in my childhood when we used to go out and watch the Ram Leela. And before the Ram Leela began, they used to say, "समय का पहिया चलता रहता, दिन रात बदलते रहते हैं. समय का पहिया चलता रहता, दिन रात बदलते रहते हैं. वही सवाल है, वही जवाब है, हालात बदलते रहते हैं." I think so. Change is contextual, and I think that is the last thing that I would leave everyone with, and hand over to Sonia to thank the panelists for their insights.
That's
Sonia.
awesome, Vishal ji. हालात बदलते रहते हैं.
Thank you so much, Vishal sir, for handing back over to me. I just want to thank all of you today for taking the time out of your busy weekends to join us for this conclave. It's not always easy coming on a Saturday and a Saturday morning and taking precious time away from your families, which I know we all struggle with the work-life balance. It's been such a wonderful platform today to exchange the ideas and thoughts. And I hope you've learned as much as I have. I was clearly taking notes here from each and every one of you. So a huge thank you to my speakers today. You've worked so beautifully with me. You've always responded to my emails and confirmed, and anything I've asked you, you've done for me. It's been amazing working with you, and I promise you, I will be inviting you to my, to the campus very soon, hopefully when things open up. So Mr. Harjeet Khandeja, Ms. Preeti Nayan, Yuvraj, and Mr. Gopal, and of course, Mr. Rajiv Kapoor. I am not sure if he is still here, but thank you so much. And our dear friend, Mr. Vishal Saigal. I wish you all a wonderful weekend. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, Vishal. Great catching up.